Good morning, dear students. Hope you all are fit and fine. Children, today we are going to understand about the topic our changing earth. Children, before we moving forward, let us understand what we are going to study in this chapter. Children, as the name of the chapter says, our changing earth, then there the first question which comes in our mind is that how the earth changes. As we know that the lithosphere is broken into a number of plates known as lithospheric plates. The movement of these plates causes changes on the surface of the earth, and the earth movement are divided on the basis of forces which causes them. So children, when the earth changes, naturally the soil also changes its composition, the river changes its course, etc. Now what more we are going to study in this chapter? We are going to understand about the lithospheric plate. How this lithospheric plate is created, what led to the breaking of these lithospheric plate. Next is the volcanoes, how the volcanic eruption occurred, what is volcano, etc. Then we are going to understand about earthquake, and last we are going to know about the creation of major landforms. In this we are going to understand about the work of river, about the work of sea waves, work of ice, etc. Children, you will be surprised to know that the earth which looks like today is not exactly the way it looks like 3.5 billion years ago. Today we can see that there are 7 continents in our earth, but actually before 3.3 billion years ago the earth doesn't look like the same. According to plate tectonic theory, which is given by Alfred Wegener, he describes that there was the movement of the plates. So children, for more understanding about the concept of earth movement, now we are going to understand the theory of continental drift. Children, continental drift is the hypothesis that earth's continent have moved over geologic time relative to each other, thus appearing to have drifted across the ocean bed. And this theory was put first time forward by Abraham Ortelius in 1596, and later on this theory was developed by Alfred Wegener in 1912. And later on children, this theory was explained by the name of plate tectonics, which explains that continents move by riding on the plates of the earth's lithosphere. Now children, we are going to understand about the earth movement and the two different types of forces on which the movement of the earth was caused. There are two types of forces which are responsible for the movement of the earth's surface. The first one is the endogenic forces and the next one is exogenic forces. Now children, we are going to understand about the endogenic forces. The endogenic forces which act in the interior of the earth are known as endogenic forces, and the forces that work on the surface of the earth are known as exogenic forces. Children, now endogenic forces sometimes produce sudden movements and at other time produce slow movement. Sudden movements like earthquake and volcano can cause mass destruction over the surface of the earth. Now children, we are going to understand about what is volcano. Volcano is a vent opening in the earth crust through which the molten material erupts suddenly. Similarly, children, when the lithospheric plates move, the surface of the earth vibrates. The vibrations that travel all around the earth. These vibrations are called earthquakes. The place in the crust where the movement starts is called the focus. The place on the surface above the focus is called epicenter. Vibrations travel outward from epicenter as waves. The greatest damage is usually closest to the epicenter and the strength of the earthquake decreases away from the center. Now children, we are going to understand about the three types of earthquake waves. P waves or longitudinal waves, S waves or transfer waves, L waves or surface waves. Children, do you know that although earthquake cannot be predicted, the impact can certainly be minimized if we are prepared beforehand. So here we are going to understand about the different earthquake preparedness measures. First point, where to take shelter during an earthquake. Under a kitchen counter table or desk, against an inside wall or corner. Stay away from fireplaces, areas around chimneys, windows that shatter including mirrors and picture frames. Be prepared. Spread awareness amongst your friends and family members and face any disaster confidently. Children, now we are going to understand about how the major landforms are created. So there are two processes which involve in the formation of major landforms. These processes are weathering and erosion. So what is weathering? Weathering is the breaking up of rocks on the earth's surface, and erosion is the wearing away of the landscape by different agents like water, wind and ice, etc. Now children, we are going to understand one of the example of how the major landforms are created. The first one is the work of a river. The running water in the river erodes the landscape. When the river trembles at the steep angle over a very hard rock or down a steep valley, it forms a waterfall. And as the river enters the plain, it twists and turns, forming a large bend known as meanders. Due to continuous erosion and deposition along the sides of the meanders, the end of the meander loops come closer and closer. In the due course of time, the meander loops cuts off from the river and forms a cut-off lake, also known as oxbow lakes. At that time, the river overflows its bank. It leads to flooding of the neighboring areas. As it floods, it deposits layers of fine soil and other material called sediments along its bank. As the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases. The river begins to break up into a number of streams called distributaries. The river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit its load. Each distributary forms its own mouth. The collection of the sediments from all the mouth forms the. Now children, we are going to understand about the work of a sea waves. The erosion and deposition of the sea waves give rise to the coastal landforms. Sea waves continuously strikes at the rocks, cracks develops. Over the time, they become larger and wider. Thus, hollow-like caves are formed on the rocks. These are called sea caves. Later on, as these cavities become bigger and bigger, only the roof of the caves remain. These form sea arches, and further on, the erosion begins. The break of roof and only walls are left. These wall-like features are called stacks, and the steep rocky coast rising almost vertically above the seawater is called sea cliff. Now we are going to understand about the work of ice. Glaciers are rivers of ice which too erode the landscape. As the ice melts, they get filled up with water and become beautiful lakes in the mountains. The material carried by the glacier, such as big rocks and small sand and silt, get deposited, and these deposits form glacier moraines. So, children, I hope you have understood about the topic our changing earth. Thank you.